It's time for ROTD Weekend. Something we never talk about is what to make for dinner in the days leading up to Thanksgiving. You know, we talk a lot about what to make for Thanksgiving dinner, what to do with the leftovers, meal prep in the days ahead, getting ready for that Thanksgiving dinner, but not what we're actually eating, making for our families on the Monday before Thanksgiving. And I think it's actually kind of tough. I mean, if you're going to somebody else's house for Thanksgiving and you're just making a casserole to take, or you're taking the dessert, you have a little bit of food prepping stuff to do the day before or the day of, but not a huge deal. On the other hand, if you are having the dinner at your house and you're having people over, you have limited fridge space because you've got the turkey in there and all the produce and other ingredients that you need to be making all those dishes you're going to be making. And you're doing some of that food prep in your spare time. Do you have as much time to be cooking dinner? So you have less space and less time, but everybody still has to get fed in this crucial lead up time, you know? So on today's special Thanksgiving weekend edition of Recipe of the Day, I have a guest on the show. Actually, I have two guests. They are the couple behind Spice Waala in Seattle, and they are sharing a special Thanksgiving recipe with us. But before I talk with them, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about what we make in the lead up to Thanksgiving. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know if I have exact answers here, because what inspired me to talk about this was thinking more about what I didn't want to grocery shop or buy in the next couple of days, more than what I actually want to get. So, I'm sitting down to do my meal plan, and one of the things that pops up all the time is some kind of chicken dinner. And then I'm like, oh no, wait, we're going to be doing all the turkey and the turkey leftovers, so not chicken. And then I was like, oh, I'll do a big skillet meal kind of thing, and then we'll have leftovers, and that'll be great. I'll turn it into a soup. And then I'm thinking, wait a minute, am I going to have a lot of fridge space for all these leftovers and for a pot of soup? So more about the what I don't want to be doing than about what I do want to be doing. But maybe thinking about what not to do is as good a place to start as any. So definitely I am thinking leaning into more fish, seafood this week, and not so much poultry, maybe even in that sort of lighter kind of meals, a vegetarian meal, just because we are going to be having so much food. And, I tell you this all the time, I don't have a sweet tooth, but I love pumpkin pie. So of course there will be some dessert. So, pre-thinking a little bit lighter, maybe a little seafood and fish, because we don't have that on our Thanksgiving meal. So kind of things that we wouldn't normally have for Thanksgiving. So that's maybe the one thing I'm thinking about. And then the other thing is, like I said, the not wanting a lot of leftovers in the fridge and wanting to have that space. When I do my big grocery shop for the Thanksgiving meal, I kind of want my fridge to be pretty empty, and anything that is in there, I want to know what I'm using it for. And so, like I said, not things that are big leftovers. And that is making me think, oh, maybe I do have a good answer here. Here's what I'm thinking is about almost when you do portion control cooking, when I've done Weight Watchers before, or different kind of dieting techniques where you actually are making just exactly what you need for that dinner, So if there are 4 of us having dinner, I'm going to make 4 chicken thighs, except not chicken, because I just said don't do chicken. I'm going to make 4 portions of salmon instead of that big side of salmon that I sometimes do, and then have leftovers in the fridge, right? And then okay, I'm probably not going to do a lot of potato kind of things this week, because there is going to be some potatoes going on at Thanksgiving and the days after, the mashed potatoes. And then we do the pierogies for ours too, which have potato. So maybe it's more the rice, quinoa, farro kind of side dishes. But normally when I make those, I make extra. I know we need a cup of uncooked rice is going to be just about exactly the right amount for us, but I never actually make the cup of rice. I make 1.5 cups or 2 cups so that I have extra rice to, have as part of my lunch the next day, or use in a burrito or another meal or something like that. So I'm always making a little bit extra. But in this case, it is more about doing just exactly what we need. And then we're not going to have all these little containers of food in the fridge that we have to worry about later on. And the other thing that I am thinking about here is trying to minimize the amount of work that I'm doing. I mean, that is always some of my goal, right? I love that Venn diagram of like really delicious and really easy, but even more so now, since I am going to be doing some of the Thanksgiving prep, since I'm anticipating spending a lot of time in the kitchen in the days ahead, trying to keep those dinners simpler. So this is maybe where I turn to some easy convenience foods. Oh, I just figured out for sure what we're having one of the days. I know I've told you about this before. These are my favorite super easy shrimp tacos. You can use already cooked shrimp or quickly cook some shrimp. And then what's the main filling in the taco is a salad kit. I like to get one of the Tex-Mex chopped salad kits. With the dressing, you just make the salad with whatever little packets of tortilla chips or like whatever they come with. You know, all those bagged salads have like different kinds of toppings in little bags. And you could do any kind of salad. Like I said, I do the Tex-Mex, but like a Caesar salad, doesn't matter. You mix up the salad and then you put that into the taco shells with your shrimp. Dinner is made and it's delicious because the salad dressing, like, you know, you can already tell. So something like that where I can cook exactly the number of shrimp that I need. I can get the bag of tortillas or the hard tortilla shell box and then just a bag of that salad. And then there are no leftovers. Super, super easy, no fuss, light and seafood. That kind of thing is the inspiration that I am going for. Okay, so I'm going to stop talking about this now because I'm going to just keep letting this percolate. But if you have ideas, I invite you to please come and comment in our Facebook group. I'm going to post about this in there today, and then you can come and let me know what you are making and eating in the lead up to Thanksgiving. That Facebook group is facebook.com/groups/recipeotd. And now I'm going to tell you about our guests today. Like I said, it is two people. How fun. I am talking with Uttam Mukherjee and Akanksha Sinha from Spice Waala, which is a 3-location restaurant in the Seattle area doing Indian street food at reasonable prices. They have won so many awards and gotten so many accolades. The spirit and the whole like concept behind what they're trying to do is beautiful and community oriented. And, you know, as we are approaching Thanksgiving and we're thinking about gratefulness and how we can make our communities better, what we can do, how we can show up in this particular time, that this couple and their wonderful restaurant, Spice Waala, is exactly what I want to be focusing on right now. Here is my inspiring conversation with Uttam and Akanksha from Spice Waala. Uttam and Akanksha, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
I'm really excited to talk with you guys. You've had so much great success with your restaurants in Seattle. Can you tell us the name of the restaurant and how it all got started?
Yeah, name of the restaurant is Spice Waala, and we started in 2018 in a farmer's market in Seattle. And the whole idea behind it was just to see how we can bring in business practices. So Uttam has a background in business and I have a background in social work. So the idea was, how do you bring those two together and create a profitable business that is really focused on social justice? And we really, really missed Indian food in Seattle and in the US in general. So how do we bring in authentic Indian flavors to people and not the stereotypical curries and flavors that are here?
So, okay, the first thing you mentioned was the social justice aspect of this. Can you elaborate on what that vision was for essentially a restaurant, a food place? Where were you going with that?
So I have a background. So my PhD is in social work with a focus on malnutrition and food justice. And the whole idea has been that people have to go to different places to get access to social welfare or to social benefit things. So we wanted to see how we can create a business model that's really focused on HR policies, so your human resource policies, so that when we're employing people, they can get all the supports that they need in-house rather than going outside and looking for all of the different supports. So whether that is providing a wage that will be helpful for them to live in an expensive city like Seattle, thinking through healthcare benefits or transportation benefits, profit sharing, 401k. So all of the things that you don't really hear in the restaurant industry, And then the second piece was because we are in a city where food again is super expensive, how do we make sure that we are using our facilities within the restaurant in a way that we're providing food to our local people who might be food insecure?
That's amazing and so inspiring. And so I know you also keep all of your menu items really, really low priced for Seattle. I've been to Seattle. This is super rare. How are you even doing that? Like what is the steps involved with, they're all under, is everything on the menu under $10? Is that correct?
Everything is under $10. When we first started, you could get what we considered a full meal for $10, including taxes. At this point in time, it's probably closer to $11 or $12 with taxes. When we started, like Akanksha said, one of our other values was to make sure that the restaurant was affordable for the whole community.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wanted, for example, grocery workers at Safeway to come and eat, security officers, and like anyone to come and eat. And that was important for us because we wanted to be a community place. And that was part of the business plan. I think no one has predicted what has happened through COVID, inflation, the economy, and all of those kind of things. So it's becoming tougher and tougher to do so. And we're currently looking at what would happen in 2025 to understand what our pricing needs to be in those things. Mm-hmm. But I think from our standpoint, we've chosen to be a low cost volume restaurant. And so as long as we can achieve a certain amount of volume, we can hopefully keep the prices. But that is also becoming more and more difficult with inflation. There's not a lot of people eating out, and therefore our volumes are kind of eroding year over year. And so we're trying to understand what we need to do to rejuvenate that.
Yeah, it's super tricky in the situation we're all suffering. Thankfully, inflation rates seem to be going down.
we can hope. We can hope. I think just Seattle is a very interesting market economically. Yeah. And so there's a bunch of challenges that we're facing in this city specifically that, speaking to other people in other cities, they're not necessarily facing, which is different for us.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to make sure we actually talk about the food. I could talk with you guys about social justice and business plans forever. Okay, so you said authentic Indian food, that what you could get before was not what you remember from home. Can you, for those of us, me included, who've never been to India, exactly what are you like thinking about? Drill down into that for me.
So when you think of Indian food in the US, you think of your chicken tikka masala, your naan, garlic naan probably, and rice and those kind of things. And so if you go back in history, there's a specific part of India that emigrated to the UK and to Canada and brought Indian cuisine from their region to the US. And so what we know today is a lot of Punjabi food. And so Akanksha being from Bihar and then also from Delhi, and then me being from Calcutta, that's not the food that we eat on a daily basis when we were growing up. That's not the food that we used to go out and eat most commonly. It was obviously stuff that we would eat once in a while. Mm-hmm. So that's why Indian food has become very synonymous with heavy, creamy, oily, and those kind of things, because that food is that. For us, street food specifically was one thing that we were really missing, and that hasn't made its way to the US as ubiquitous as your other cuisines. And so we felt like that was a big gap for us. And so we focus on two types of foods. One is called kathi rolls, which is essentially the Indian version of wraps. We do it specifically with a thin roti style bread. And then we put the proteins in there with some pickled onions and cilantro chutney. And then the second type of food that we do is called chaat, which is essentially small shareable tapa style plates, which are, very different across the different parts of the region. But Akanksha being from Delhi has brought Delhi chaats to our menu.
So can you give me an example of one of the chaats?
So our most popular chaat is the aloo tikki chaat. So what we do with that is it's a fried potato patty, which is marinated with different spices in it. Again, not spices as in heat, but flavorful spices. Mm-hmm. And then we deep fry it and then put a bunch of different toppings on top of it. So it has sweet yogurt, tamarind chutney, a little bit of the cilantro chutney. So it gives that sweet and tangy flavor. And then chickpea shaving. So that'll give you a little bit of a crunchy flavor to it. Pomegranate, so freshness. And then topped with a little bit of cilantro and onion garnish. So when you bite into it, you would get all of those different flavors in one bite. And I think that's something, again, that's not recognized so much in Indian food is the complexities of all of those different flavors playing together. And street food being such a humble way of providing it is interesting because you don't have to pay like $50 per plate to get those complex flavors. Ours is for $5.50. So you can have those complex flavors in that.
Oh, I love that. So in India, street food, I'm imagining it like American street food. Like, is it carts in the street that people are selling in that kind of way? Or is it things that you walk and eat? What exactly is the vision?
It's a combination of all of those. So there's a lot of, from our childhood, we would probably remember a lot of carts where, they came to, for example, our college campus and outside the gates, and they would serve, during either lunchtime or afternoon snack time, and they would serve like a bhel puri, for example. There are a lot of what used to be, let's say 20, 30 years ago, a shack on the side of the street, and now have become so popular that they've kind of gone into restaurants and those kind of things. But a lot of street food, you either stand around the cart and eat it right there and there, and they're serving to you hot, fresh, or you take it, you go back to office, you go back to school, you walk around your neighborhood, etc.
And is your restaurant sit down, or are people standing up, grab and go kind of thing?
So we have 3 locations, like you mentioned. We have 2 which are dine-in restaurants, and one of them is a takeout window.
Oh, okay. So you have all the options covered.
Yeah, exactly.
Our dine-in is pretty limited. We did that purposely. So we have about 15 to 20 people that can dine in at a time. So again, it's restricted. And within the space also, if you see there's places to stand, like our first location, there's a little bit of places to stand where people can be more on the high top. There's like stairs so people can sit there, or just regular sit down places. So again, like we're trying to create that feel of just trying to make sure that you can eat wherever and it's an easy to go food item.
And I say it keeps costs down too, probably, right? You don't have to have servers, you have to be cleaning, like all of that. So it all feeds into that same vision you're going for. Yeah, I love that. So I do want you guys to tell me what your surprise recipe is for me, but I just want to make sure that people know how really successful you've been and recognized in some very different places that they probably heard of. So I believe, and you can tell me more information, Food and Wine has mentioned you in a neighborhood feature. And is it? Okay, I've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce has given you an award as well. Like, this is unbelievable. Can you tell us about some of these accolades? Because they're just mind-blowing.
So I think it's been interesting because it's been a span of different places. I think one of our initial first recognitions was by Seattle Times, and we're always very thankful to that because we had just opened. We didn't have a lot of people who were coming in, and then Bethany from Seattle Times came in and wrote a raving review, and we got a lot of people come in for our chutneys, green chutneys specifically.
Yeah. I think we were the last rated restaurant before they moved to a non-rating system in Seattle.
Oh.
So that was very, very cool to get that recognition right out the bat.
Yeah, I think that's like something local that's been interesting. Food and Wine, of course, but the New York Times, I was very excited about that one. It was just one sentence, like a one sentence blurb, but they didn't mention when they came, when Seattle restaurants were mentioned, we had a small mention there. U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we were a shortlist of the restaurants in Seattle in Pacific Northwest. We weren't the winner, but
we were one of the top businesses in the Northwest.
Yeah.
Not only restaurants, it's all types of small businesses.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then we just got shortlisted for the King County one as well. So as a small business, so that's been great.
Yeah, I think the key for us has been we're more than just a restaurant, just because we want to showcase what our values are, what our commitment to the community is, as well as what our business model is. So I think holistically, it's been nice to see that recognition from a few different places.
And you're doing meals for the community as well, right? Can you just talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've always, like I mentioned earlier, we've always had this social justice piece that's embedded into our business. But once COVID hit in March 2020, we were trying to figure out what would be the best way forward to help the community. And we wanted to be very conscious of not overburdening any system. So whether that is the emergency food system, whether that is like the restaurant, in whichever way. So we went and spoke with a bunch of different nonprofits to really try and understand what would be the ideal way forward and where would we fill in the gap. And the feedback that we received is in Seattle, there is a large amount of immigrant population that is there that are not getting a lot of the emergency foods that are culturally appropriate. So a lot of the donations that were happening were, again, very westernized, canned food, not very nutrition heavy. So what we started doing was focusing on following the USDA standards of nutrition. And then Indian food has the advantage of being nutrition heavy if you're putting like cooking lentils with vegetables and rice. So every week we currently partner with organizations. So there's Community Lunch on Capitol Hill and Mary's Place, where we provide 50 meals, 100 meals per week. And we're at 48,000 meals.
Wow.
And it's all donations we take are focused only on food, just buying the food and procuring the food. And Uttam and I just donate our time. So no money is going towards anything else except purchasing of the food.
Oh, well, thank you so much for all that you're doing to bring delicious food to people and to help the community. That's really lovely. And I love hearing about this.
Thank you. It's our pleasure, honestly.
So now I would like to know if you've brought a surprise recipe for me. Is it Indian?
It is Indian. And so sticking with the Thanksgiving theme.
Yeah.
So for us, it was very interesting because we immigrated to the country in 2007 and we immigrated in October of 2007. So Thanksgiving was one of our first like big tentpole American holidays. And we had no background. We never heard of it when we came, me and my family, and we were living with my aunt. And being Indian, we said we needed to throw some spice into this. And so over time, we've kind of evolved what we do for Thanksgiving. But for the last 5 years, we've been serving a whole marinated tandoori chicken in the restaurant. And so customers can come purchase that from us and then they use it for their Thanksgiving meal. So in Seattle, there's probably 300-ish families, houses celebrating Thanksgiving with an Indian tandoori chicken.
Oh, I love it.
That makes us so that makes us very proud that we are able to share a little bit of our heritage and our kind of immigration story with people. So we wanted to share with you what our tandoori chicken recipe would be.
I am blown away by this idea. I love it. So first, what does tandoori mean?
Yeah. So a tandoor is traditionally a clay oven that is vertical, and you usually like lean into it. There's coals usually at the bottom, and you lean into it and you skewer meat and you put it inside, or you slap bread onto the inside of the clay oven and you cook meats, breads, or anything else in that fashion. It has evolved over time where there are different ways that you can do it. There's electric grills, obviously, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the general nomenclature of tandoor. And then tandoori means something that's being cooked in the tandoor. There's a slight misnomer where people think that tandoori is a specific spice or a specific flavor profile or something like that. So you can get tandoori masala in your Indian grocery stores, but tandoori, it's essentially the way that you're cooking things. So in in traditional Indian recipes, there's a lot of recipes which are actually called by the manner in which you're cooking it, not necessarily the spices in which you use. And so the tandoori masalas that you can use would vary from house to house, restaurant to restaurant, or anything like that.
Oh, that makes sense to me. So it's like when we would say like braised chicken or roast chicken,
exactly,
that kind of thing.
Exactly.
And is it like a dry heat? Is that what it's doing? So it's like
exactly,
it crisps things up.
Yeah. So I think if you think of it almost like a pizza oven, but a vertical pizza oven.
Yeah.
But like a charcoal pizza oven, the heat is just emanating upwards. But because it's a clay oven, it's also the outside of the inner layer, of the oven is getting so hot with that heat and absorbing all of that heat that it's constantly emitting heat to the inside.
Yeah, no, I love that. Okay, so how do you start when you're making these chickens? Where do you start?
So we would recommend about a 3 to 4 pound whole chicken that you can buy from any of your grocery stores. We usually will skin it so that there isn't, because the skin can be difficult for you to kind of crisp up at home in your oven. And then it also prevents the spices from going inside. So because it provides that layer. So we would recommend taking off the skin. And then it's up to you whether you want to spatchcock the chicken or not. Spatchcocking will just make it much quicker to cook and much more even heat distribution across the different parts. And then the other optional thing would be if you want to put some slits into the chicken so that the marinade and everything seeps in. So with those optional kind of tips, we usually will create a marinade that we will rub onto the chicken and we will let that sit for 24 to 36 hours. The longer, the better. Honestly, it tenderizes the meat more. The base of our marinade is usually yogurt. So I would start with 1/3 cup of yogurt, and then all of the different spices you're going to put into that yogurt and whip it up and mix it evenly before spreading it onto the chicken. So we would put 1/2 tablespoon of salt, 1.5 tablespoons of cumin powder, 2 tablespoons of coriander powder, 1.5 tablespoons of garam masala powder. And garam masala can be different from household to household, but for the most part, if you go to an Indian grocery store and you buy any garam masala from there, you should be perfectly fine with this recipe.
What about the ones just sold at regular grocery stores?
Yeah, I think all of those are fine also.
And what are the typical spices in that blend?
So it'll have pepper, cinnamon, salt, of course, cumin, coriander. Some of them can have star anise in it as well. And then black cardamom is also in there.
Usually if you open one of those packets in any of your stores, you can smell what is going to be the biggest note. So if it smells very earthy, it's probably going to be like black pepper and black cardamom.
Sweet will be your cinnamon will be in there. So it depends. And then if it's more spicy or then your cumin and coriander will be higher.
Okay. I love that. Thank you.
And then 2 teaspoons of turmeric powder, 1.5 tablespoons of red chili powder, and then 1 tablespoon of ghee. So ghee is clarified butter. And then in Indian cooking, we use a lot of ginger paste and garlic paste. So we would say 1 tablespoon of ginger paste and 2 tablespoons of garlic paste. If you don't have ginger paste and garlic paste, just, take some fresh ginger, take some fresh garlic and just pound it or put it into a mixie and kind of grind it.
So are those things that you would normally buy, like for your own kitchen? So you buy the already made garlic paste and already made ginger paste?
In Indian households, yes, you would have ginger paste and garlic paste usually in your refrigerators. I think if you're trying to be a little bit more fresh, a little bit more conscious of what you're putting in, because those would have a little bit of preservatives for sure.
Okay.
Then, you could make a ginger garlic paste at home and just keep it in the freezer and kind of just take out a little bit every time you want to use it.
No, that makes sense.
A good tip for that is if you add a little bit oil to the ginger garlic paste, it just stays longer. So you can just have it in the fridge because it solidifies and then it's easier to cook.
That sounds great.
So that is your whole marinade. The one thing to think about is that when you go to an Indian restaurant, usually a tandoori chicken will be a bright orange chicken. And so that's food coloring. So this recipe does not have food coloring or preservatives. You could use a red chili powder that has more color than heat. So your basic red chili powder that I just mentioned is probably close to a cayenne pepper, but then you can have like a Kashmiri chili powder, which is more bright red and has a lot more color intensifying than your heat. Or there's another one called Degi Mirch, which is very different also. So there's different types of red chilies that you can use, which will give you different heat levels and color levels.
Is this ending up like yellow from the turmeric? Like, are you getting some of that, or it's not enough?
No, because the turmeric is so little. It's only 2
little.
teaspoons.
Yeah.
I think turmeric, gives you brings the spices together, but also, previously used to be like an antiseptic essentially. So a lot of Indian recipes will have that because it's good for you. Yeah. Good for your body, good for cleansing, et cetera, et cetera.
So it won't be bright orange and it won't be bright yellow.
It won't be. And then lastly, one thing that we like to recreate, like you mentioned briefly, was the tandoor can get things crispy on the outside. So if you want some of that crispness, you could add a little bit of rice flour or chickpea flour or something like that into the marinade. And then that would crisp up, the outside of the chicken.
So that goes all over it, maybe with slits in the chicken, and 36 hours is the recommendation. Yes.
The more, the better. We do 36 hours in the restaurant for almost all of our proteins. And then when you are going to cook it, bring it out onto the counter to bring it to room temperature, let's say an hour before you're about to cook it. And in that time, you put the oven high at 425 degrees and just preheat the oven. And then you put the chicken in for 15 minutes at 425 and then rotate it 180 degrees for another 15 minutes.
Okay.
And then rotate it again after that for 180 degrees for another 15 minutes, but reduce it to 350.
Okay.
And then your last turn, rotate it again 180 degrees. So for another 15 minutes. Again, the reason why we usually do that and we give instructions to all of our customers to do that is just because your oven at home or even commercials are going to have hot spots. And so you just want nice, even cook across the whole chicken.
Right.
So that's why the rotating kind of helps with that. Starting very high will get it crispier on the outside, and then kind of the lowering the temperature over time will just kind of make sure that you're cooking it thoroughly. And then we always recommend making sure that your internal temperature of the chicken is 165. And usually I would check like the thickest part, so the breast meat or something like that, to make sure that's 165.
Wow. And then and then that's done. And
That's done.
Do you carve it or do you leave it on? Do you carve it at the table? What is your favorite way to serve this?
Yeah, I mean, it won't be as much of a carving experience as a turkey because there's not as much meat.
True.
Yes, you would carve it at table, squeeze some lemon juice on top of it to get a little bit of acidity, serve it with some cilantro chutney for dipping. We usually make some sides at home for it.
Yeah.
So,
and then some bread or rice. So usually you would do bread with it. So you can do a naan with it, which is very popular. And you can get it in the restaurants. You can do a thinner bread, which is called rotis. So you can make that at home. So it depends on, again, what you like. If you don't like gluten, then I think rice is a perfect way to go with it.
Oh, this sounds like a wonderful idea for Thanksgiving. And we're recording this before Thanksgiving, so I have time to try it. I'm excited. That's really cool. So can you let people know where they can find you guys if they want to learn more about your business and your vision, all of this? Where is the best place for them to go?
Yes, so we are at spicewaala.com, which is SPICEWAALA. We are also available on Instagram at Spicewala. We're also available on Facebook at Spicewala.
TikTok also now.
At TikTok.
I love it.
And yeah, they're also, they're more than happy to reach out to us by email, spicewala@gmail.com, if they have any questions or they want to share with us what worked or what didn't on the recipe, I guess.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. This has been inspiring, fascinating. I really appreciate you taking the time to tell us about your restaurant and about all the great things you're doing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Christine.
Don't you wish you lived in Seattle now? I definitely do. I want to plan a trip soon. My friend Matt just moved there and I am sending him off to check out Spicewala. But if you are like me and not there, just make that chicken, right? So good. I cannot wait to try it. Thank you so much, Spicewala team. Such a great conversation and you guys are so inspiring. I'm really just blown away by the good work you're doing and all that amazing food. As to amazing food over here, I am not doing any official recipe testing or development this week. It is a short work week and I am mostly editing some pictures, putting some videos together, sharing some great Thanksgiving recipes on social media, focusing on that and not so much in the kitchen with the testing. So I don't have anything new and exciting that I'm about to try to tell you about in that direction. I can tell you though that there are 2 new recipes going live on the sites this week, one on each site, and they are just in time for Thanksgiving. So one on Cook the Story is the maple glaze for ham. And this, I really, really love this glaze recipe because you don't have to cook it or anything first. It's just mix up these ingredients and then you start brushing it on the ham about an hour before it's done, every 15 minutes or so. And it's got, the maple syrup, of course, and then a little bit of tanginess from some cider vinegar, a little mustard, and then the warm, cozy spices, cinnamon, cinnamon, cloves, ginger. That goes on the ham, and the caramelization just makes it nice and brown and golden. Actually, there is a sneak peek video of that one up on social media if you want to see what this glazed ham looks like, even though the recipe's not quite out yet. You can find that on TikTok and on Instagram and Facebook. If you find me, I am Cook the Story. You will see the maple glazed ham sneak peek video. It is stunning, and that recipe is going live on Monday on Cook the Story. And then on the Cookful on Monday also is the evaporated milk mac and cheese. This is so great. If you do a mac and cheese as a side dish for Thanksgiving and you want like a quick and easy stovetop version, this is a great one. It's just 3 ingredients. It's the macaroni, of course, and then some shredded sharp cheddar cheese and evaporated milk. Oh, and a bit of salt. And for this recipe, you actually just use one pan. You cook the macaroni in like not very much water, so you get this like starchy water. And then the evaporated milk, it has this like higher protein content. And so it emulsifies with that starchy water really, really easily. And so you don't need any kind of like flour or cornstarch, any of the stuff that you usually get in a cheese sauce. It's really just the evaporated milk, the starchy water, and the cheese that forms the sauce all around the noodles. Really, really cool technique. Really, really nice recipe. And you only dirty the one pot. So it's great. That recipe for the evaporated milk mac and cheese goes live on the Cookful on Monday as well. And if you want to hear me tell you more details all about making those 2 new recipes, those are on the calendar for this podcast for this week. You know, just helping out with making those last minute decisions. So yeah, the mac and cheese, the maple glaze for the ham, those are on the list. Oh, there's a roasted butternut squash casserole, a light sweet potato casserole if you're looking for something a little bit leaner. Oh, and then there is, oh, I love it so much, the cranberry relish recipe. And then I've even got a recipe this week for what to do if you have leftover cranberry sauce. So stay tuned for that. Make sure you're listening every day. If you are not subscribed already, get out your phone and go to cookthestory.com/ROTD. And then you can see the subscribe links at the top, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, those places. But if you listen on a different app, if your favorite podcast app is not one of those, just open up that favorite podcast app of yours and search for Recipe of the Day. You will find me, and make sure you're following me on social media because lots of ideas coming out every day. I am Cook the Story everywhere that I am. I hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful Thanksgiving as well. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you so much to Uttam and Akanksha for being such great guests, bringing that great chicken recipe. Check them out, Spice Waala in Seattle, 3 locations. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.